Why is mansplaining such a bad thing? Is there a female equivalent?
One of my favorite jokes is the tweet that says my girlfriend is using the term mansplaining wrong and I don't know how to tell her. Momsplaining.
It's gotten better in the last 10 or so years, but I remember guys would talk to me like a child, sometimes trying to explain things I had done a dozen times. There's a difference between informing and acting superior, with mansplaining being the latter. It was demeaning at times, and insulting in the worst situations. I don't mind if a man tells me something, but when they treat me like a child it becomes annoying. A good indication that it's mansplaining, that I notice, is when a man starts to use bigger words that he wouldn't use in regular conversation in order to confuse or make more complicated.
Womansplaining, yes. Same thing. Also, the negativity comes from a man explaining something to a woman that was neither asked for nor needed, under the assumption the woman couldn't possibly understand something so complicated with her little woman brain. Or vice versa, in the case of womansplaining. I appreciate there's some irony in explaining this, however, as it was specifically asked. I'm good, smiley face. It's basically just condescension and it's always annoying, but mansplaining is a special kind of condescension where a man explains something to a woman, unprompted, assuming she doesn't already understand. The female equivalent I suppose would be a woman who assumes all men are stupid and speaks down to them about topics.
I once had a male friend explain how to use a measuring tape to me. We were at my house and it was my clearly used measuring tape. It wasn't phrased as "oh, here's something I just found out." It was pretty flabbergasting.
Mansplaining.
Usually it's a manifestation of sexism and/or misogyny. Usually it's when a man, incorrectly thinking he knows more on a particular topic than a woman, tries to explain his mistaken thoughts to her in a condescending way. The condescension is bad, and often she's way smarter than he thinks. Or he thinks he's way smarter than he is. Or both. And for bonus points they'll explain something to women that they have vast experience with and men have almost none, like periods, pregnancy, cramps. I'm sure women do the same thing sometimes, but it's not at epidemic levels like mansplaining is. As a woman I've had several experiences where I try to help a man out with something I have more experience in. They don't believe me, then suffer the consequences. One of my favorite examples is I was in sculpture class and a boy was using an angle grinder without eye protection. I politely got his attention and asked if he needed to borrow mine. He insisted he was fine. 10 minutes later I hear a scream and cursing. He had to go to the emergency room and get the metal removed from his eye. Luckily it was in the white part and didn't cause permanent damage, but woman shrugging. Mansplaining is bad because it's condescending. It's not just a man is explaining. Although it has definitely turned into that for some. It's man explains to woman about something she already knows but is assuming she doesn't. There's no real equivalent term that has caught on. But I've seen people joke about womansplaining or femsplaining. It's definitely not regarded as much an issue, but it definitely exists. Mansplaining is more of a workplace issue, whereas women tend to femsplain in the home when they tell the men in their lives how to do chores or take care of their kids. I remember one of my jobs was training new employees in the shop as a young man. I was not comfortable with the male cultural phenomenon where revealing ignorance of tasks is exposing yourself as an idiot. Trying to guide other young men to be more efficient or practical was a challenge in tiptoeing around ego and defensive anger. I needed to drop concepts surreptitiously so as not to offend their pride. It made training take longer than necessary. I thought it a relief when some young woman was the new hire, for she was likely more responsive to criticism and suggestions without emotional baggage. Until the day one lady was offended that I would patronize her with the upfront instruction that I withheld from the male hires. I could see the logic in that and was horrified that I could be so sexist in my assessment and approach. So I kept the distinctions of sexual characteristics out of my process and left off training anybody. It was too confusing trying to trick people into doing the best practice. Women who are experts on a topic have to prove themselves in a way that men don't. So when a man tells a woman how to do her job, or lectures her on a topic she's an authority on, the irritation builds up and becomes a sore spot regardless of the man's intentions. The basic idea behind it, which is a less qualified person speaking over an expert, isn't a gendered phenomenon. Women tell men what it's like to be a man. Healthy people tell sick people how to cure disease with kale and positive thinking. Laypeople tell scientists how to do research like they didn't spend years learning it. Mansplaining is just a term that lets women talk about this specific variant of the phenomenon.
It's an annoying and sometimes harmful tendency that men should be aware of when talking to women, but it's not a dire social issue that people should argue about so much. Next up, manspreading. How much space do your nards really need on the subway, and would that space be better used for a pregnant woman?
Mansplaining is bad because it refers to a man condescendingly explaining something to someone, usually a woman, about something that he doesn't have complete knowledge on, with the presumption that he knows more about the topic than the person he's talking to does, especially if the person he's talking to actually knows the topic better than he does. An example would be a man explaining how baseball works to a female baseball fan at a baseball stadium. He's presuming she's stupid and explaining to her a topic she knows because he presumes that a woman must know nothing about baseball.
There totally is. When they womansplain things like taking care of infants or doing laundry. As if you haven't had kids or had done your laundry before.
As someone with ADHD, I over-explain things already, so I always feel bad when I catch myself doing this. LMAO. It's due to the patriarchy and just seeing women as lesser than men that mansplaining is a thing. While women definitely can act condescending towards a man only due to him being a man, it won't be the same as mansplaining since there's no systemic oppression on top of it. The woman is rude, but it isn't womansplaining or anything similar. The reason there is a specific term for it and why it is such a bad thing is due to the power men hold over women. I probably didn't explain this well at all, but whatever. Also kind of ironic that I'm talking about this, explaining it as a man. It's not that a man is explaining something to a woman. It's that they're explaining something to a woman that already knows or understands more than man. But the man assumes they don't. If I ask a guy a question about something I don't understand and he helps me understand, that's not mansplaining. The time a man who has never been to art or business school tried to explain to me, a working children's book illustrator with a master's degree, how I should price and sell my own artwork, was mansplaining.
It's called being condescending, and it happens to everyone.
Mansplaining is simply when a dude starts explaining something basic to a woman. Something that's painfully obvious. Anyone could mistakenly do this to anyone. It's just that in our society there's an elevated number of men who just assume by default women are stupid, so there's a disproportionately high number of men doing this to women. But yeah, I've seen this go both ways for sure. Mansplaining is a man explaining something to a woman because he assumes without cause that she doesn't understand it. IIRC. The term was coined by one Rebecca Solnit, an academic, who was chatting about a book with a colleague. A man approached them and, instead of introducing himself, began explaining the book to Solnit, who was the author. Womansplaining to a man? Sure, you just don't see that anywhere near as often.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.